So at the end of the last episode, I left you with the ability for me to move a ball from the bottom to the top, but the ball was resting on the back wall. Now the thing I have in my mind is going to be stood away from the wall so that the balls can't use the wall as part of the lift. They need to be held and trapped by the wheel itself. The wheel isn't round at the moment, so it's catching on the little kind of attachment points that I've got. And obviously I need something to keep the balls from falling out. Now I've just had a lovely comment from Little Ball Creations, who's a guy who makes rolling ball sculptures in the UK, pretty similar to me. He makes them out of copper, and he's come up with the idea to make it much more 3D and basically, yeah, take care of everything like that. So in this episode I'm going to do that. I'm going to make the wheel a bit more 3D, make the balls totally encased within the wheel so that they don't rest on the back wall. I'm going to see if I can find a nice position to mount the motor and get it turning reliably and regularly, and make sure it's got enough strength to lift up the balls on their own. I'm also blogging more this time, I think. Instead of me coming up at the end with look at what I've made and it's a finished product, I'm going to give you an insight into the journey as I go, and hopefully you'll see just how these things are designed and made along the way. So let's get back to the workshop and I'll see you there. Okay, stop the plinky guitar music. I think I've made a decision, and it means a total change of plan. I have been struggling with working out this new thing, and also a moving workshop in about 2 weeks, and to start something quite complicated and new for me was a bit of a struggle. So my heart isn't really in learning how to do that exactly, so I think I'm going to go and do something else. And what that is I'm probably going to go and buy a nice circular baseboard of some sort and probably make another helical lift. I've already got the motor and the speed controller, so that can go underneath a piece of copper sat in the centre and get the balls up to the top. I can make some beautiful circles with my new circle machine, and they can go around the outside and almost make a cylinder shape sculpture. And I do want to use these things, and you know, that will look really nice in the middle. I've got another one here, I've got another one here, I've got serpentine, got bits and bobs, and so I can kind of use the bits I've already got and make some kind of cylindrical shape with the balls going up the middle. Quite fancy that. Have some nice straight bits of copper around the outside, almost like an old gas tower. And that would be easier than me having to do this. It also means that in 2 weeks' time, when I need to dismantle the shop and move all that, I can just pause all this and carry on, and I'm not really reinventing anything that I can't already do. So, let's go shopping. Firstly, let's look at the motor. The first one I had was only good for mounting that little wheel because there was only a little flat on the shaft. Now I've decided to make a helical lift. I wanted one with a thread, so I bought a new motor. This allows me to thread in the axle that will be the middle of the helical lift. Then I went and got myself a lovely olive wood baseboard, and I think the motor will go around here. Then I'll make a nice round circular top. Holding up the top will be 5 threaded rods covered with copper tubes to hide the rods. I've chosen 5 because that's how many rods I have lying around from a previous project. Underneath the baseboard I'll mount one of these lovely turntable bearings, which will provide the owner with a 360-degree view of the finished piece of work. I will somehow hide the motor, power input socket and speed controller all within the baseboard, visible from underneath but not visible from anywhere else. So first up, it's time to mount the bearing using some insert nuts. Then I used masking tape to trace out the motor hole positions before transferring them to a little piece of plywood
to make a mounting plate. This can be as rough as you like, because it's hidden and out of sight. Then I soldered on some wires to the motor and marked out a pocket position on the baseboard. Then I did a little bit of pre-drilling and then lots and lots of routing. Eventually I got it deep and even enough and then drilled a through hole for the helical shaft. After a while I had completed the pocket for the motor, added a little clearance pocket for the motor connectors and a lovely long groove from side to side for the wires. The plan is that the power supply socket will go here and the speed controller will go about here.
Right, this is the speed controller and it's only got about 5mm of thread, so I've got to put it through something and get a washer on and get a nut. Now the nut and the washer are about 2mm, so that gives me a 3mm piece that I can go through. But this has been so hard. I'm very happy I've done it. Basically the thickness of the baseboard here is 57mm. And I've gone down and made a hole that's 56mm deep. So I now have a 1mm thick piece of wood just here for the thread to go through. Now I'm really pleased because that means I don't have to make a little copper plate, don't have to put bolts and nuts and screws and things in place, and it's one less bit for me to have to make to get that on there. So I am now able to put the motor in there, put the speed controller in here, run the wires from the power supplier through the speed controller into the motor, so I'll get the soldering done, and that should be that. Okay, that's got the speed controller wired up, and the motor and the power supply input, and I have covered it with a little bit of tape so you can't see my wires, and I've put the bearing back on. So it's looking pretty good. I've also screwed the motor base plate up into the bottom of the sculpture base plate, so it's all going. Here on the front, that's where the helical lift will be, so this will be covered with an appropriate spiral, and here's the motor controller. So if I just plug the motor in, then I can put on the motor, and you can't see it. Let's put a little flag pole on it. Well, this has been a very surprising episode for everybody, including me. I was going to make one of these get a bit better, but I've kind of abandoned it, so you know, there we go. I'll come back to it in the future at some point. I'm really pleased with this baseboard. I'm really pleased with how the electrics have gone and how it all looks. Already it's looking slick and smart, almost like the pyramid, but round. Don't know, can I make a round pyramid? What's that called? Cone. No, I'm going to make a circular thing. And I suppose what will happen in the next couple of weeks is I'm going to move the workshop and build a helical lift. I don't quite know what the next video will be, so stay tuned to find out. And then obviously once I've got the balls up to the top, the real fun starts in bringing everything from the top down to the bottom. And stick with me, it's coming together and I'm very pleased. See you in the next video, bye.